So we're in the third week of this series on mental health. We called it Enough, as in enough of worry, enough of panic, enough of depression, enough of anxiety, and all the things that every single one of us struggles with at one point or another. We even talked about last week how more than 40% of people in Scotland between the ages of 16 and 34 are ranked as having moderate to high anxiety or depression. That's a big number. That means you walked by them on the pavement today, you were with them at work this week or in class or wherever it is that your life takes you when you're not with us on Sunday evenings. So a couple weeks ago, we started out by talking about being careful what voices you're listening to. Choose to listen to Jesus instead of listening to the enemy, your adversary, Satan, who wants to just ruin your life. And so we gave you these journals. We talked about how your mind is wired and how you can rewire your brain. If you don't have a journal, they're on the table there in the back, and feel free, you're going to use them again this evening. And challenge you to write down some declarations that you can use every single day to rewire your brain in the way that for God to remind you of who you are and how special you are to Him. Last week, we talked about casting off anxiety. We talked about casting it off in the same way that the coats were put on Jesus before He came into town to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. We talked about grounding ourselves in hope, grounding ourselves in gratitude, and grounding ourselves in grace. And so we've tried to be very practical in this series. We wanted to give biblical backing, and we don't want to say, just give it to God. We don't want to just say like something churchy, but rather we want to tell you what God says, the victory and the freedom He wants for you, and then some really practical ways that you can dive into it. And I'm so excited for tonight, one, because it is such a privilege to be sitting up here with my wife, but also because she has agreed and actually wanted to share her story and her own story of finding victory in the fight for mental health. And so, when someone shares their story, you can find yourself in it, no matter who's telling the story, whether you're male or female or wherever you are, whatever season of life that you're in, you can find yourself in the story. And so I'm so excited that she is willing to share hers. She is totally capable of being up here without me.
I wanted you here.
And
I
she
told him I wanted
she invited me to be up here, just so you know.
Well,
and
because it's truly, when I share my story, it's our story.
That's right.
Because you've walked through this journey with me, so.
Yeah. So how you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. Good.
I'm actually good. My hands are always freezing, and so I can't feel that I'm holding my glasses right now, but I know because I can see that I'm holding my glasses. So if I suddenly drop these, will somebody on the front row
I'll get them. I'll be a gentleman. I'll get them.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
I appreciate that. But because I need to do this, I want to invite everybody to just take a really deep breath. And seriously, collectively, I would love for us all to just that felt good, didn't it? Just take a deep breath. Just relax. I remember the first time I read a little quote. It said, relax your jaw. I can't tell you how many times I'll be driving in the car or I'm doing something about my day and I realize I'm walking around with my jaw just clenched and I'm tense. So relax your jaw, relax your shoulders, and I'm going to do the same as we get into our story today.
Yeah, so we'll be walking on the pavement together and you'll reach over and grab my hand or I'll grab yours and you'll tell me, relax your hands. Walking around all tense. Just relax, friends. You're in a safe place tonight. So let's start out this way. You had a dream on your heart from the time you were a little girl. This is your story you're inviting us into.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So this was my dream. My dream is different than everybody else's, I know, but my dream since I was a little girl, I could not wait to be the mom. Probably since I was 5. I think I can remember all the way back to being a 5-year-old. And the first doll that I got that you could change its diaper, I was like, oh, this is so real life-like. And I was so excited to change this little baby doll's diaper and take it to the store with me and tell it to be quiet. And then when they came out with the dolls that you could feed a bottle and you'd see the milk would magically disappear, I was like, oh, there you go. You're almost, I pretended for as long as I could before it was uncool. And but yeah, it was my dream, and you know, in my mind, it went a little something like I was going to meet a handsome guy.
Check.
And and then we were going to get married, and then I wanted to have 4 kids. And I just had this picture of us, you know, sitting around a dinner table at night, and everybody ate all their vegetables. And after dinner, I was going to tuck them all into bed with a bedtime story and like blow out the candle. And the house was just going to be so peaceful. And we'd start the next day fresh and rested. And I mean, what could go wrong with an expectation like that, right? That was pretty much my dream and what I wanted. And so and I had known God my whole life too, and I remember praying and asking God for that. You know, God, would you give me a family someday? And so when I was about 12 years old, I met Paul. And we've been friends all through middle school. And we started dating in high school. And I think we have a couple of pictures, actually, that I didn't get your permission 100% on, but so that's on a carousel at the beach, and that's when I had bangs, and I'm glad.
I remember that silk shirt. I missed that silk shirt. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, it was like Miami Vice. And we started dating in high school, and Paul's the only guy I ever dated, the only hand I've ever held to this day, and I love that I can say that. And we went to the junior senior together, which was the prom. We went to a Christian school, and so our prom was called a junior senior because prom would be a little too edgy.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so he invited me to go to the prom, and I went. This was a thrifted prom dress, and I was so excited because the girl that competed in a pageant wore it, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was so excited, and got my hair done by a professional. We went to the prom, we dated.
I got ready in like 10 minutes. It was awesome.
Yeah. But so I was a cheerleader in high school, and Paul was on the football team. I don't know if some of you guys knew this or not, but he was on the football team. And could I tell them what position you?
Yeah, American football, so a little different.
American football.
Yeah, you can tell them.
And he was...
hydration technician is how I like to say it.
He was the water boy.
For a state championship team, thank you very much.
No,
all right.
That's right. He kept everybody. If it wasn't for him, nobody would have been able to.
Those guys would have been dehydrated in the first quarter.
That's exactly right. But honestly, he was like the VIP. Everybody loved him, and I saw that. That's something that I saw in him from the very beginning, was his heart to serve has always been there. And so yeah, we dated through high school, through college. There's a lot of stories in between there, but we got married, and we moved from Virginia to Georgia to help start a church. And that church grew really quickly, and we were married for about 5 years before we found out some really exciting news, and that was that we were going to have our first child. And so, yeah, on October 8th, 2002, our first son, Will, was born. That's Paul and Will. And yeah.
I remember that moment. That was pretty special.
Yeah.
I sang him a song. That's the first thing I did.
Yep.
So all your dreams are coming true. Every day is perfect. There's actually other parts to our story that we're skipping.
Yeah.
But you're finally now, you have your first child. This is a dream come true. And he's healthy, thank God.
Yeah.
And then something changed rather quickly. Talk about that.
Yeah, so the second day that we're in the hospital, I felt a little off, and I was like, well, I just had a baby, so of course I'm not going to feel 100%. But it rapidly began to decline, and I was really weepy. I was crying off and on, and I had never heard of postpartum depression before. I didn't have any clue what that was. In all the training and all of the books that I read leading up to it, it wasn't something that I read about, because I just thought, once you have a baby, you're going to be happy because you have a baby. And it ended up being so acute that by the time that I left the hospital, I mean, even before I left the hospital with our newborn, I was in a really, really bad state. And we got home, and I just, I thought, well, maybe I'm just nervous that I've got a new baby, and I'm just not sleeping, and I've got insomnia. And after about a month, I was into full-blown panic attacks and anxiety and depression, really dark thoughts, and I called my doctor because I was like, something's not right. This is not me. This isn't my personality. Here my dream has come true, right? And I'm just a complete mess, and I didn't feel like I could be a mom to my baby. And so she explained to me what postpartum depression was, and she said, there's some medicine that you can take, and this will help you. This will help to sort of relieve that cloud. And she was right. In about a month after taking some medication, I did feel that cloud start to lift a little bit. There is such a broad scale and scope for anxiety and depression. It can come from so many different things in our lives. It can come from trauma, from loss, from perfectionism, the need to please people. It can come from major life events. It can be medical, it can be genetic. There's so many different things that can cause or trigger anxiety and depression, but the symptoms are very, very similar. In most cases, I would say the symptoms are the same. Your heart will race. You will feel, upset to your stomach. You'll have insomnia. You'll have just this lack of desire to do anything or motivation, a feeling of laziness and isolation, and on and on and on. And so for me, my first sort of introduction to anxiety and depression was more in that medical category, being postpartum depression.
Yeah, and I appreciate you going over all of those symptoms and things because, obviously about half the room will never have a baby, or more than, and not all the ladies even will have a child, but you don't have to go through something like this to go through panic, anxiety, dark thoughts, all the things that came out of this, triggered by a moment that was meant to be joyful.
Yeah. And
it became a really tough season. How long did that postpartum season last, would you say?
I felt better after taking something to alleviate the major symptoms, but it lingers, right? You get a little better. It's 2 steps forward, and then you take a step back. And I have to be honest and say this because it lasted a few years. And even through those really fun few years of toddlerhood with Will, I still had moments where I would slip back into it. But I did start to learn some tools along the way, and we're going to talk about, we've got lots of application later that I want to get into. For you guys.
So moving our story forward,
Yeah.
you did feel the cloud lift,
Yes.
and you got better, and we're raising a toddler, and we will leave all those stories out of this for his sake at that moment. And then a little while later, we got some more news.
Yeah, so about 3 years after Will was born, we found out that we were going to have baby number 2. And we were ecstatic. Will was so excited. Will was like a 40-year-old man at 3 years old. He was just so alert and so intuitive. He knew, he was just so aware of everything that was going on, and he could not wait to be a big brother. So when we told him for the first time, it was so exciting. And so I was doing the things that I knew that I needed to do to take care of myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of those things. And about 3 months into my pregnancy with Wesley, I was starting to have some very serious heart issues, and I didn't know what they were. I remember one night specifically that it just all came to a head. I was laying in bed, and Paul was sound asleep, and my heart was racing so fast. I literally thought I was going to have a heart attack, and I was scared. I couldn't get a deep breath, and so I woke him up, and I was crying, and I was like, something's really wrong. I don't know what to do. So he took me to the emergency room, and they just sent me home. They said, you probably just need to not have caffeine and do some yoga, and you'll probably feel better.
That'll
if you
fix
do that."
everything.
Yeah, nice one. I went to 9 different doctors after that before I could find somebody that would help me. And it's a very touchy thing when you're carrying a child and you have a medical condition going on at the same time, for somebody to go, okay, how can we treat this? How can we keep you healthy and your baby healthy at the same time? And it finally took us driving to another state to meet with a cardiologist that we were actually there an entire day. And after a series of tests all day long, the doctor came into the room where Paul and I were sitting, and he said, "I do have some news for you. I know you've had all these symptoms." At one point, I had gone for 30 days without sleeping at all. And I don't know if you've ever gone just like a couple of days without sleeping or even a week. That can really, really mess with you psychologically. And I was having hallucinations. I was very unsteady. I was very unstable. And that's the moment I thought, like, I'm going crazy. Like, I'm out of my mind. And when that doctor came into the office at the end of the day, he looked at us and he said, "I want you to know you don't have all of these things wrong with you." I'd given him a list of insomnia and just, my heart was racing and the thoughts that I was having, all of these things. He said, "You have one thing that's wrong. You have a heart condition. It's called dysautonomia. And once we treat that and once we help you with that, then all of these other things will shrink up and they will start to go away." And I was like, what about the fact that I'm carrying a child? And he looked at me and he said, "I just got off the phone with one of my patients who delivered a baby boy, healthy, all 10 fingers, all 10 toes. And he said, I'm asking you to trust me." And we had prayed that God would send us a doctor that would be able to help me. And so we were like, we're trusting God and we're trusting you. And I'll never forget the day that Wesley was born. That day was very special and very sweet because we got to the delivery day, and he was born via C-section. But I also knew that day that I needed to have another surgery, which would mean that I wasn't going to be able to have any more kids. And right before they do a surgery of any kind, in the States at least, they do this because people mess up all the time. That's a really scary thing, to have to tell the surgeon what your name is and what you're having done so that they don't mess up. So the surgeon literally said, "Can you tell me your name and what you're having done?" And I said, "My name is Angela Richardson." And I had already had the C-section. Wesley was born. He was healthy. And the second surgery, I said, "I'm having a tubal litigation, but my husband and I would like to call it something else." And she just looked at me. She said, "What?" And I said, "We'd like to call it the ribbon cutting ceremony, if that's okay." And she kind of giggled, and I was like, it just sounds more happy than tubal litigation. And I was really struggling with that, you guys, because I know with every fiber of my being that God has blessed me with 2 boys and 2 healthy boys. But it was also the end of that little dream since I was a little girl that I had, like, I'm going to have 4 kids one day, And I had a nurse, and his name was Nathan, and I will never forget this. I almost feel like I can feel it right now because I'm laying in the hospital room, and I'm looking up at these lights, and they're super bright. And I just had tears running down my face. They were puddling up in my ears, and everything was muffled. And Nathan sees that's happening. And he came over with a little towel, and he just dabbed the tears out of my ears, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "That's actually really sweet, because a ribbon cutting is the beginning of something. It's not an end." He said, "So this is really the beginning of your life with your husband and your 2 boys." And I just want to say, there are some people that have all the medical knowledge in the world to be doctors and nurses, and they're great at it. And then there's people that that like God put them on this earth to do what they do. And Nathan was for sure there to do that.
Definitely one of those people.
Yeah.
We have a picture of, I think, our first as a family of 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
There's little Wesley Bug, his little hat from Baby Gap. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think Will wanted to sing a song, so he crawled up and said,
Yeah.
let's sing a song.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what it was, but it was
Yeah.
a special moment.
So that's, that was our first picture together as our family of 4, and just so grateful. I remember we sang "How Great Is Our God" in the hospital room over our 2 boys, and we started life there. We kept building a church, and I just threw myself into raising these 2 amazing boys, and so grateful that God had given me these 2 boys. And all the while, I still had this lingering depression, lingering anxiety, and I hid it. I just learned how to manage and go through life without sharing it with anybody.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people come to realize is that many times hiding mental pain can actually make it worse.
Yeah.
It can make you physically sick, and it can cause
Yeah.
you to spiral deeper into depression by hiding it. And so how did that play out for you?
So, I was keeping up with my doctor's appointments, and I was definitely trying the best that I could to take care of myself physically and mentally. I did go to a dermatologist one day because I thought people should go to a dermatologist. You should get your skin checked. And they said, "We see this spot on your back, and we think we need to biopsy it." So they biopsied it. I got a call a week later. The nurse said, "Hey, you've got skin cancer on your back. We need to go ahead and remove this." Nothing sounded alarming at all, and so I was like, okay. The word cancer, that was not like a fun word to hear, but I was just like, this is what we need to do. So they said, "We want you to come back in a few months, and we're going to check you again." And they checked me again, and there was more. And then I went back a few months later for another check, and there was a lot more. And it began a series of surgeries for me that would end up in the 147 surgeries is how many I ended up having. And my issues with my physical health in our marriage affected me mentally so much, because I felt like I was the burden. I felt like, Paul was so caring and so great. He has earned a nursing degree just by being married to me, okay? So if anybody needs anything, he can take care of stitches.
If you need something, you need to go somewhere else. But no, that's okay.
Okay.
It's a privilege.
But I share this as a very, very tender part of my story. But I remember being a young mom and having boys that were small, and they would be, playing baseball and playing outside. And boys are young and they're energetic. They're, they want to run around. They want to jump on the couches. And I would hear Paul, say I had just had a surgery, and a lot of them were on my face, and I'd have like a whole ice pack, covering my face, and the boys would run in from being outside, and they'd need a drink. They were super thirsty. It's hot in Georgia. And he would just, shh, your mom's sleeping. Guys. And whenever I heard that, I just got this pit in my stomach, because I was like, it's my fault that they can't be themselves in our home. And everything that I thought that I was going to be, every dream that I had for my family, I felt like I couldn't live up to it, because I've got so many issues. I've got mental issues. I've got all of these health issues, and we're spending so much money. Healthcare is very different in the States also, and so we were spending so much money on all of these surgeries, and then I still had my heart condition, and we paid out of pocket for that. So I started to think, like, man, my kids, they could be going on great vacations. They could play the best sports if it wasn't for all of this stuff that I was going through, and I just felt like this cog in the wheel of our family. All lies, right? Let's recognize that right now. Like, all of that was lies. But I was not in a place that I could recognize that at the time. And the tragic thing about that is that I never contemplated taking my life, but I did ask God, God, you've given me this heart condition. You've given me skin cancer. There's actually like these plausible reasons that you could take me home, and I would never have to let my boys or my husband think that I wanted to leave them, because I loved them more than anything in this world. And I never, ever, ever would have wanted them to think that I left voluntarily, but I was in so much anguish and so much turmoil that I was like, God, this is the way. Like, I was telling him, how it could all work out, so that they would not feel hurt or abandoned. And that really was the lowest that I got.
Yeah. I just want to say thanks for sharing that. That's something you and I have carried for years. You've never shared it publicly. You've spoken publicly about this before, but you've never shared it publicly. And I just want to tell you, it's so courageous and so vulnerable. Yeah. And I know your heart well enough to know, as we've talked about this, your reason for sharing it now is not to bring attention to you, but because you know that there are people here tonight, or we all know people who are at their lowest point. And so you weren't making plans for yourself, but you were helping God make the plan. And you were keeping this all very, very private and just hiding how you were feeling, which is what so many people do when they're struggling with anxiety and depression. They try to put on a happy face, and everyone in your life at the time would just know, joyful Angela, how amazing, how bright, how beautiful. I always say the brightest light in every room. And even during that time, but you were hiding this. What was your reason for hiding?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to be thought of as a fraud. Here I am, at a very large church, and you're pastoring, and I'm helping alongside, and I knew all of the right things to say. I counseled other people during this time on anxiety and depression and walked through life with people. And when I was faced with it myself, I just felt so lost. I was like, why am I reading scripture and the words are just flying past my eyes and I can't make sense of it, but yet I can say it to somebody else? And I was really struggling because I think the number one thing in the enemy, especially if you're a believer, if you believe in Jesus and you struggle with anxiety and depression, he wants you to think you must not be walking with God as closely as you thought you were, because you're struggling. So that was a lie that just kept cycling through. I felt guilty for seeking medical help, and I just want to take a second right now and say that it's not always the case, but for some people, seeking medical attention is crucial and it's life-saving. And there is no judgment. There is zero judgment for anybody that needs to go to someone and seek a professional and say, I'm not okay. But that was hard for me, being in a church where our church didn't have this view, but there were people that would pull me aside and say, God's going to help you through this. You don't
just give it to God.
Yeah, just give it to God. Mm-hmm. And so hiding it became this way that I coped, but I just have to say, hiding it is the most exhausting thing, and it only perpetuates it. It only makes it harder. We were, one night that I specifically remember, I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't hide this anymore. We were at this really fancy Christmas event at our church that we put on every year, and everybody dresses up. It's sparkly. There's candles. There's a nice dinner. And of course, it's a room triple, quadruple this size, and there's round tables everywhere. And of course, we're sitting like up at the front. And we're sitting at the table, and I felt a panic attack coming on. And I just started to look around the room, and I'm looking for the exit doors. I'm like, how can I get out of here? Like, I just need to leave. And every door that I could see, I would have to go through this maze of tables to get to a door to get out. And I just thought, I can't talk to anybody in this state. If somebody were to say, Angela, how's it going? Oh, I love your dress, or anything, I would completely crumble. And so I just sat there paralyzed. I felt like I was suffocating. And Paul is, he's paying attention to whatever's going on the stage. And I remember I reached under the table and I grabbed your hand and I just squeezed his hand. I squeezed his hand so hard, and he looked over at me, and without saying a word, he just looked at me in a way that was like, I know you're not okay, but I've got you. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. I know that, not everybody in here has a spouse or maybe even somebody that close to you, but it is so important that you have someone that you can be the most authentic with. And that night when we got home is when I just was like, okay, I'm not hiding any of this anymore. And I literally told him, I said, I'm about to tell you things that might make you run for the hills. You literally might pack a bag and go, hey, this is too much for me. Peace out. It's been great. And I wouldn't have blamed him. I would have been like, I know. I know. I'm surprised you've stuck around this long. But that was really the beginning of me sharing it all with you, and letting you in on all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, you're describing a Christmas event, and they're putting Christmas lights up on George Street. I don't know if you've seen this. It's October 20th, by the way. You can buy your chocolate mint reindeer in the co-op if you'd like on your way out. But and it's already coming. But in all the happiness and joy that is Christmas, I mean, this was a happy event. That actually brings this out a lot for people who are struggling with depression and anxiety. The season that we're about to enter into is one where these things become heightened. And so we need to be aware. And if you're struggling, you need to be in good community. It's part of the reason why we've got small groups that we're beginning around here, because we need each other. We need to encourage one another and bear one another's burdens. And so I, of course, was able to do it as Angela's partner and spouse on a different level. You were coming out of hiding. That was so important.
Yeah.
So we're turning the corner.
Yep.
How did you get better? And then I think you've got some incredible things that you want to share with everyone for application here tonight.
So getting better for me was a combination of help and having hope. And I will always combine those two, because I think, I put all of my hope in God, my Savior, the one. But He provides help. And so I trusted that, and I did seek help, and that led to hope, and hope ultimately leads to healing. We are going to talk through some really practical things. I would love for y'all to pull out your journal if you have it and write some of these things down. And even if it's not something that you're dealing with, if there's somebody that you love that you know is struggling, maybe not even to this extent. Maybe they're just kind of going through a hard time. These things are going to help, and I pray that they help you too. I think one of the things that was the most profound to me in that time, I allowed myself to be vulnerable and share everything. Other than Paul, I shared it with one person that I really trusted in my life. And I just said it all ugly. It wasn't wrapped with a bow. It was just like, here it all is. And when I was finished, she just looked at me and said, me too. I've been there. And I can't tell you what that did. That was just like, okay, you are sitting across from me. You've obviously made it through that season, and that gave me hope. And so having somebody to talk to, hope maybe tonight this is a good Me Too moment for you. Maybe hearing this story will help you go, hey, I have some hope because I saw that somebody else went through this and made it through. But the symptoms, the battle that goes on inside of our mind can lead us to these kinds of questions that we ruminate on. And these are the questions that I really, really want to attack tonight, and I want to replace them with truth. The first one is, am I the only one that feels this way? That was a huge one for me, very isolating. I'm the only person on the planet that feels like this. Am I too much to handle? Am I going crazy? No, you're not going crazy. And then why does everything seem so hopeless? And I think most people find themselves at a complete loss for words. If you notice, somebody in your life that's hurting or struggling, and you say, hey, I noticed you don't seem okay. Is there anything I can do to help, or can you try to explain to me what's going on? That person will feel so overwhelmed with the enormity of all that's going on inside of them that they might simply look at you blank and just say, I don't know. And that's a sign that they need some help. So there's questions that we're never going to know the answer to this side of heaven. But thankfully, we have God's Word, and we have the Holy Spirit, and we are not without help, and we are certainly not without hope. And that's what I want us to focus on tonight, because we don't have to surrender to a life of gloom and doom. I don't know about you. I don't ruminate on all of the stuff that has happened. I share that because I want somebody to be able to relate to it and get help from it and hope from it. But I have moved, that was then and this is now. And so I think the enemy wants you to believe you're always going to be this way, that this is just a prison sentence on your life, and it's always going to be this way, and it's never going to get better. And those are lies, like we talked about earlier. Those are lies, and the only way to combat those lies is to replace them with truth. The very first truth that I want to share with you is from John 8:32. So if you want to write this down, that would be awesome. It says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." So it's not just any truth. It's not the world's truth. It's not, what, some psychic or some clinic or somebody says. It's God's truth. God's truth will set you free. So we're going to crush those lies. So in your journal, the very first thing I want you to write is you are not alone. So we talked about, am I the only one who feels this way? No, you are not alone. Deuteronomy 31:8 says, "The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged." So not only are you not alone, you've got the God of the universe right there with you. And he's telling you, do not be discouraged. Do not be afraid. Just like Paul said the very first Sunday, choose your lion. That lion that is strong, that his paws are just his paws hitting the ground make the earth shake. That's the person that's walking through life with you. Number 2, you are not too much to handle. Man, this was a big one for me.
Write it down. Some of you need to write it down.
Yes.
You are not too much to handle.
You are
and then
not.
you show that to your roommate and say, see?
Yeah.
I told you. All right?
John 16:33, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace in this. You may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. Yeah, you're not too much to handle. Don't let that lie circle around in your mind. Number 3, you are not going crazy. You are not going crazy. I can't, when I hear people say like, oh, I must be crazy, I have the hardest time with that. I want to go, no, you're not going crazy. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind. Those words, sound mind, that simply means a mind that has been renewed and is secure. That means your mind is capable of making rational decisions. So to walk around and even say over yourself nonchalantly, I must be going crazy. Let's stop that. Let's squash saying the word crazy and just saying, I got a sound mind, and I'm confident in that, okay? And then the 4th thing is, as a Christian, as a believer, we have hope. Hebrews 6:19 says that we have a hope that is an anchor for our soul. So when you hear the word hope, sometimes you can hear that word and it sounds sort of ethereal. What's the word?
Ethereal.
Ethereal.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hope is just this vaporous thing. Here's why I love this verse so much, because it makes it a tangible hope that is an anchor for our soul. An anchor that is like strong and firm and secure. This is not like a wishy-washy hope. This is a hope that like sustains you through storms of life. As I was preparing this, I was really careful to make sure that my boys knew what I was sharing with everybody, because like Paul said, there's some things I haven't shared publicly before. And I actually called Wesley last night and I said, hey, I know that you know a lot of my story. He's lived it a lot with me. He's seen all of my stitches and scars and been through all of that. But I want you to know there was something a little bit deeper. And they are both, they're grown men. They're old enough to handle this. And kids are a lot smarter than you think they are. They know a lot more about what you're going through. But I even heard in Wesley's voice last night, after I shared with him, hope. Like, wow, Mom, I'm really glad you said that, but that's going to give people a lot of hope. And another verse that gave me hope during that time, other than Hebrews 6:19, was Psalm 91:14. It says, because they love me, says the Lord, I will rescue them. I will protect them, for they acknowledge my name. This meant everything to me because, like I said, during the time where I was trying to read scripture and I desperately just wanted God's words to wash over me and give me peace, and I'm like, why isn't this sinking in? Why can't I make sense of scripture, even the most simple scriptures right now? I read this, and it says, because she loves me, I will rescue her. Because she acknowledges my name, I will protect her. I didn't need anything else. I didn't need to come to him all tidy and all put together, and I didn't need to understand and have some 2-hour devotional that just changed my life. All he needed from me was for me to say, you're my God, and I love you. And that was enough for him to reach down and to pull me from the pit.
That's good. I'm going to share some of these things that we've learned over the years from counselors and therapists. They're just real quick, rapid fire, and then I want you to share like where you are today with all of this, and we'll close with some more songs here in just a moment. Some practical things to help with anxiety and depression. You ready? These are practical, and we've talked with therapists and clinicians, and these. You've heard these before. But these are not just from your mom or your grandma. These are now they're from your pastor. So let's be strong. All right. Number one, drink water, people.
Cheers.
Yeah. I'm preaching to the choir right now. So if you can start your day with water instead of coffee, this is like the hardest words that have ever come out of my mouth. But if you can start the day with water instead of coffee, even just drink a couple glasses of water first and then your 10 cups of coffee, it'll help you. All right? Water increases the blood volume in your body, and when your blood volume gets low, a lot of these symptoms can come on, and then you can spiral from it. Number 2, talk it out. All right? Talk it out. You don't have to do it at the first small group, by the way, okay? I know it's heavy. Build friendships, build Christian friendships where you can share these things. Talk it out. Don't go into hiding. Get outside, even in Scotland when it's windy and rainy and cold. Okay, get outside. Go for a hill walk. Go for a hike. Angela, this is Angela's list, and she's actually right. I'll go ahead and say it again. If you're really struggling with panic and anxiety, no caffeine. Okay, no caffeine. Oh man.
Limit.
All right.
Limit taper
caffeine.
down.
Thank you. See, I love that. Spirit is working right now. All right, here we go. Sugar is the same thing. Sugar and caffeine are just like pouring gasoline on this stuff. Okay, and you know this, and this will be a sermon for another day. But limit alcohol, which is just fancy sugar at the end of the day, is what it turns into in your body. And so if you're struggling with panic and anxiety, limit alcohol as well, so you get through this season, get back on your feet. Number 7 that Angela put down, I love this, laugh. When's the last time you just had a belly laugh? I mean, it's for your soul, right? What's the proverb that's on that?
Proverbs 17:22, a cheerful heart is good medicine.
Cheerful heart is good medicine. See? Pull something up on YouTube and just laugh, all right?
We have a ton. If you need videos, we've got great videos.
We
to make
love
you laugh.
making fun of other people. No, I'm just kidding. We love watching the reels where people are just being silly. Number 8, and the reason why we've given you what we've given you are these journals, okay? Journal your days. Write out your thoughts, even if it's write one line, okay? And I hope that you will use these journals to write down some of these truths and rewire your brain. Read them over and over again every single day, all right? Before the team comes up and closes us with a couple of songs, would you just bring us up to speed? Where are you now in your journey with physical and mental health? You share it with others. It's been amazing. Just give us some summary thoughts here as we close.
Well, I never wanted to be the overcoming anxiety girl, and it kind of turned into that over the last 25 years of ministry. I had a lot of opportunities to go to different women's groups and speak about it, and I am grateful. I'm grateful to use anything that I've gone through if it helps somebody else. That's not to say that I don't still go through seasons. It's life, and I haven't shared everything with you. We've lost a best friend in a cycling accident. Just recently lost my dad to cancer, and you're going to go through seasons in life. But here's the thing that I have, my perspective is now, not when I see a season coming or something hard coming my way, not, oh no, here it comes. It's, okay, here it comes. I know what to do. I'm equipped. God's given me tools. I have His Word. I'm going to put these things into practice. I'm going to start taking care of myself. I'm going to get outside. I'm going to replace these lies with truth. And I still have a lot of health issues, and in a couple weeks, I'm headed to the States, and I have a surgery, and I have some more biopsies to be done. And I'd be lying if I said I still get nervous when I go. I hate needles, I hate them, but I have every fiber of my being believes in healing, and I believe that God, in His time and in His way, will heal me. And I trust him. And if he's still allowing these things to go on in my life, that there's a reason for it. And so, you know, if you're in a season right now, I just want to encourage you. It's going to pass. It's going to get better. There's over 452 times in the Bible that there's the phrase, and it came to pass. It came to pass. It came to pass. So it will not last forever. And I cling to that, you know, and I want you to as well. We have such a great community in this small. I keep saying our church is small but mighty. But you people have already shown that you care for each other. And I've sat with quite a few of you, and I've heard your stories. And I'm going to be honest, I wake up at night and I pray for some of y'all that I've been able to walk through some things with. And it is such a blessing, and it is such an honor. And we just want to be here for you. And we want this church to be a place that just puts our arms around each other and carries each other. I wanted to end tonight with, there's a song that, it's my favorite song. And I think the guys are going to maybe start making their way up here. But I love this song because it gives me true peace when I hear it. And one of my favorite verses about peace is from John 14:27. It says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." And I love that because that means Christ gives us our peace. If he gives us our peace and it doesn't come from the world, then the world can't take it away. Isn't that amazing? Anything can be going on in this world. There's wars. There's so many things that can rob us of our peace, but it doesn't come from the world. It comes from Christ. And there's a couple. You want my chair? You guys want to take that, and I'll get out of your way? There is an amazing songwriting couple that their names are Bill and Gloria Gaither. And they were getting ready to have their third child, and they just had a lot of anxiety about bringing a child. This was in the 1970s, bringing a child into the world in the condition that the world was in at the time. Like, how do we bring another innocent child into this world, and what are they going to face? And Gloria was writing one day, and she just sensed this peace that because God lives, no matter what happens, I can face tomorrow. And I love the way this song starts out. I love that they just go right into the gospel. There's no warming up. There's no beating around the bush. God sent his son. They called him Jesus. He came to love, heal, and forgive. He lived and died to buy my pardon. And an empty grave is there to prove that my Savior lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. And so I would like for all of us to just declare that over our lives and sing that together. And then I'll let you do these two things later. Okay.